can't see the chat. Why can't I see the chat? There it is. I don't know. Let's see if anybody shows up at 3 a.m. What's going on? Wait, I can't see the chat. Now I can see the chat. Well, you know, I took a nap in the middle of the day today, and etc. And somebody filed a bug 44 on the compiler, and this bug, let me hang up from Discord. This bug is a crash, and can't let crashes live for a long time. That's no good. So let's see what the hell. It really looks like simple code that shouldn't crash, so I have no idea what's going on. Let's just look at what this code is. It's right here. This is not doing anything. There's a copy string. It's an array of U8. Pointer to an array of U8. Oh, so we're taking a string. Is it like trying to auto pointer the string? Wait, I don't know. It's just the wrong number of arguments, except there's also a copy string in BASIC. Dude, I don't know what's going on. Let's look. Let's look. Num arguments. Oh, this assert went off. Okay, we're trying to... It's asserting that we already correctly matched a type that has the same number of arguments that we're calling with, and that is not true. That is not true. We only supplied one argument. So, like, how did we get here? Is the question. It's not exactly jet lag schedule. It's just late schedule. I don't really feel laggy now. I just, I'm on the late schedule. That's all. Played some PUBG tonight. This is the post-PUBG programming, as one does. As one does. It's problematic. I can't stream all my PUBG. I got to have some private PUBG to myself. All right, so obviously whatever went wrong with this went wrong in the type checking phase. And here where we're asserting is in the bytecode. So yep, there's definitely only one argument, but whoops. Defin lambda argument declarations has 2. That's a mismatch. Okay, so where did we get defn from? Proc expr inferred type. Proc expr is, it's a lambda, we knew that. It sure had better be if we're calling it. And okay, which one do we think we're calling? Line 397 of basic. So that's actually the correct overload. Oh, but it's got a default argument now, which it didn't used to have. Oh crap, this is a bake. We're supposed to have returned a bake. Okay, well, whatever. If I comment this out, or if I make this a different name, does this still crash? No. That's so weird. Okay, wait. So it's something to do with overloads, confusing the bake, shaking and baking. I don't know. All right, so we just gotta look into this. So call arrow s is this. Conditions, call arrow s is equal to that, and let's go. Hardened procedure call is a procedure call when you know exactly what you're calling. After it's been polymorph specialized and after values have been baked and all that stuff. It's when you know exactly what you're calling. Resolve potential overloads. Well, we didn't manage to proceed this time. They weren't ready, so let's try again. All right. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so what did we get back in resolved? So this, I believe, should have baked the argument. Constants block should have something in it, maybe. No, it didn't bake the guy. Oh, maybe we don't actually do the baking yet. We just decide who, right? Okay, so we set the resolve procedure expression. We type check arguments. We didn't yield, and we succeeded. I'm confused now. Where is the value bake supposed to happen now? Does it happen here? I think it happens here. In any case, it is supposed to already have happened. Okay. You know what? I don't think this pf run flag is necessary anymore. I'm going to write down pf run eliminate question. Oh no, actually that's I don't know, man. Resolving outer. All right. Let me just see. So do polymorph. So resolve potential polymorph. All right, we're going to do that. I believe it's supposed to happen here. So we'll go back to that point. Okay. I really should have set this. Do we have the right source lambda? Yep. Okay. Where did bake get set? Oh, it's not in scope yet. Okay. Okay, so we can run to here. This is where value bakes are supposed to happen. And it's the second argument that's supposed to bake. So it's this one. Yep. So my argument is a literal. writing down this comment typo to fix it later. Should remove argument by this name is set to true. Okay. Check for yield. Okay. Now, we're doing the polymorph. Made a new lambda. We copy the body. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're copying the arguments. Put those into the lambda. We're applying value bakes. Now, for each bake, there's only one. We find the declaration. Putting that in the constants block. So it's pretty clear. Okay, so we successfully did that bake. Now there's a thing in the constants block. So for some reason, we're not returning the right lambda or something's happening, right? So this lambda has a constants block. The constants block has a member. That member is, of course, a declaration of allocator, just as it should be. So that's all good. This is all correct. So what the hell? Is that still true? Constants block, members, okay. Load directive. Find, oh, we might find a matching. Ooh, not good. Or maybe good. Okay, what happened was we did the bake on this lambda and then we looked for another polymorph and we said, wait, we already did this polymorph. Let me check that. So that explains why we would return something different from this, because we're about to throw this one away. Okay, this guy doesn't have members. So this is the problem. This is good. Let's go. Find matching polymorph. Okay, well, the constants block matched on the first one. That doesn't make any sense because one of them is empty and the other one isn't. So there's a really trivial bug. if one of them is empty, all right. The loop above only checks for what's in A. I can't believe I made such a rookie mistake. Yes, I can. Sometimes I program this thing when I'm really tired. All right. Boom. Boom. Well, now what? That was all I really planned to do on this stream. Someone's complaining about my and star. Let me see. So the problem is the following. This is not a regular array, right? So to use the subscript operator, this is a pointer to some type. So to use the subscript operator, you have to dereference the pointer, right? And then subscript the array and then take the, this is totally fine. Sorry. It's not a pointer. It's its own thing. It's its own thing, like David S. Pumpkins. What are my thoughts on being more declarative about things like checking the types of nodes in an AST? It stung me recently when I changed underlying type representation in my compiler and hadn't encapsulated how I interrogate objects for their type all over the system. I think I need a more concrete example about what exactly was the problem and how exactly you're proposing to solve it. I don't think declarative things are very good for running programs because it's very hard to make them efficient. And it's very hard to follow them mentally, honestly. It's very hard to debug a declarative program, which is one reason why nobody programs in Prolog. On the other hand, for error checking, it's maybe not the worst thing. So if you were to list out a bunch of constraints and you just say like, in a debug build, these constraints must always be true and they're declarative, that might work. I don't know. I've never used a system like that I thought was good, but I'm not saying you couldn't make one. But I guess I'd need a more specific example of what you're talking about. No, star value bakes plus I would require me to implement the plus operator on this, which I did not do and have no intention of doing because it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, I often put so-called redundant parentheses in C++, and it's because, honestly, I don't remember the order of the operator precedence anymore, because I don't care, because it's stupid, because like, I used to remember it and be minimal about all my parentheses and stuff, but there's still one or two things that you can get totally burned on, like, and they're common things, like bitwise operations along with logical or and or something like that. I forget exactly, but I just decided, you know what, fuck this is stupid. I'm just going to put parentheses, enough parentheses that I'm always completely confident about what's happening and never have to think about it, right? So, did I finish Horizon Zero Dawn? No, I just didn't really like the game. I mean, it's not for me. Fabian's been streaming it, so he likes the game. I wasn't into it. You're saying, I often complain about code quality in other projects, but from my perspective, the code I see on the stream and the bugs you're working on solving are not discernibly different quality-wise from other code bases I've seen worked on. Ever doubt the quality of what you're creating, or is there an obvious difference? I think there's, for the most part, an obvious difference. Of course, I'm solving bugs because it's not done yet, right? As for what is the quality of the code that you see, well, you can be the judge of that. But also, this is not supposed to be hardened shipping code. Note that I'm not even letting anybody use this, right? So if you're comparing something that you ship to people with what you see here, is not really the right comparison, first of all. Secondly, I probably have a very different opinion of code quality than you do, right? Because I don't agree with a lot of what they teach you in school as high quality code or low quality code. So I may be going in a metric that is toward my idea of high quality code and away from your idea of high quality code, right? So keep that in mind. Thirdly, this is what I'm solving here is just a way harder problem than most people work on, you know? What's a dumb thing that people seem to have a hard time with? Like writing a graphical widget set is not a very hard problem, yet people seem to create these Byzantine, really complicated, many, many lines of code systems that are full of bugs to do that kind of thing. So you have to take into account how hard is the problem being solved, right? So some of the stuff I'm doing here is toward the edge of my abilities, right? And that also shows up in code quality because I haven't done these things before and I don't know how to do them. And sometimes things that I do are temporary and only meant to get us to a later point where we understand the problem better, at which point they get replaced. So that is what I would say about all that. And all that said, I don't have a picture of, you know, the code that you're referring to. And so I can't compare quality to there. When I think about random open source projects that I've looked at, this is way higher quality, right? I think. But again, the metric of quality is different. Like, I look at standard object-oriented code and I think it's just a pile of garbage, right? Whereas other people think that looks clean and organized, but it's because my metric is different. So, I don't know, man. I mean, all I can say is, you know, I have a history of working on very small teams of programmers, right? Like, Facebook can't do anything with 3 programmers, and we made an entire giant video game, well, 3.5 programmers, an entire giant video game engine and a game in it, and shipped it on several platforms and so forth, right? So you have to take into account what is being accomplished and by how many people and that sort of thing as well. The comment in the middle is doubled. Sometimes I double comments in order to make them more visible. Does my pretty print also pretty print bit fields? Not right now. The thing is that there isn't right now a separate type for bit fields. I've been meaning to do that. I've been meaning to have like a flags type, because if you're in a debugger, you want to see like the enums names representing each flag, right? Like, I hate in Visual Studio looking at my flags word and having to decode it. It takes so much time, right? So I want to do that, but it hasn't been done. How is calling C code done? Well, you just make a prototype for it, and then you link the library to your program. So like the STB libraries are in C. Those are things that people watching might know what they are. So if I go to here, right, it's just like you would in C. It's just I have a prototype of the procedures, and I say what library they're from. It's actually a little more specific. So C or C++ wouldn't have this part. This part says this procedure comes specifically from this library. Don't accidentally link it to a different library. So you don't even have to be as paranoid about unique names and stuff, although the STB library was written in C, and so it has prefixes over everything anyway. But anyway, that's how you do it. Why do you take %1, %2 formatted strings when you can't really distinguish them semantically if you just look at it? I don't understand the question. What do you mean distinguish them semantically? What? I just don't understand the question. What do I think about IP, TCP, and HTTP protocols? Are they as crazy as the rest of the internet? HTTP is getting bad. IP and TCP are pretty good. For games, I prefer to use UDP and not TCP because TCP is not meant for that kind of application. But they're both smart. Like the foundations of the internet were made by smart people. It only turned to a pile of garbage once the web people showed up. A little bit before that even. Like stuff, the old programs like SendMail was a giant, constantly crashy piece of junk. I don't know. Stuff, printer daemons were always horrible. Maybe those were written by the same guy. But like the foundations of the internet are pretty good. They're made by people who knew what they were doing at the time. It's just the people who came along later that messed it up. You do a lot of work in the Linux kernel for a living, and I can attest the code there is absolutely terrible in a lot of ways. Yeah, I have no experience with the Linux kernel. I've never looked at Linux kernel source code that I can remember. Maybe I've looked at it like 20 years ago. I don't know. I have no opinion about Linux kernel code whatsoever. So I can't make a comparison, right? I do know that the Linux kernel code is probably not very object-oriented, right? So there is that's in common. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, when I think about software quality, I don't think of operating system kernels as being the low-quality software. I think of applications as being the low-quality software, especially web applications. But you know, like kernels kind of have to be a minimum amount of good, or people just won't use them, right? That said, drivers are notoriously bad, so I don't know. Like kernel core is usually probably pretty good. Kernel drivers are usually probably pretty bad. But I've never worked on that stuff directly, so I have no opinion. Isn't count or date something better, like number of apples or something? No, because I need to put this in the FAQ that doesn't exist. If you're internationalizing your program, you're going to support like 30 different languages, and all those strings are coming from a database, right? So now you've got to, if you change the name of a variable, you have to go out and edit your frickin' database 30 times and change all these strings that have variable names in them. Or you're giving them to a translator, and the translator doesn't know what they're doing, and maybe they change count to cuento because they're in Spanish and they don't realize it's a variable, right? And then you're messed up. So it's designed the way it is now because I think that's the best way for shipping real programs. That said, Tim Sweeney was trying to convince me that it was good to put the variable names in there, but I don't remember what his arguments were, honestly. So, am I prepared to become a Linus-like figure in order to preserve the quality? Probably not in the profanity way. I'm probably have better people skills than he does. But my plan is not that this would have a massive number of contributors in the near term. It would be more like a smaller number of contributors in the near term, and then as we grow it, we just have to see what makes sense. That's all. Nobody can sign up to help contribute yet. There is no possible way to sign up to help contribute. It's just not how it is at this time. I answer the backwards compatibility question all the time. We will have a limited amount of backwards compatibility, but in the long term, we don't want to be as messed up as a language as C++. And one of the reasons C++ is so messed up is because they never allow themselves to fix their mistakes. You have to be able to fix your mistakes if the language is going to last a long time. So we're going to do a DirectX-like model. Like for a while, we'll try to be backward compatible, but then we'll break it off at some point and say, now we're at version 2. Your program can be very specific about which version it supports or it's written for, but also we will be providing tools that allow you to auto-rewrite anything about your program that needs to be changed. Or, you can imagine cases where it doesn't know what the right answer is, but it knows that the old thing is not right. And in those cases, we'll at least flag it for you and say, these are the things that need to be changed. And we can do that because we have good compile time introspection tools. What about something like print %count apples, count equals number of apples? Something like that could work. It's just more typing, and I'm not sure it's worth it, but we'll see. Print is just a library function, right? And in fact, there's nothing magical about it at all. So you could make your own version. Although doing that string interpolation, the count equals number of apples thing wouldn't work yet, but it'll work once we have macros, which we're going to have. So, what are my opinions on teaching coding in early school years? I learned to program when I was 10 years old, so I think that's fine. Yeah, the point is to use a metaprogram. Like, we'll give people a standard library metaprogram to upgrade their code, right? So before we ever ship the compiler to the public, we'll have a library routine that browses your code syntax tree and re-outputs a text file that is byte for byte identical with your original source code, all right? For any program that correctly compiles. So, and the point is that if you can reproduce the original code, then you have all the information you need to reproduce arbitrary transformations of the code, and that's in your hands, right? It's not something that only compiler hackers can do. So if you wanted to output Lisp code instead, or you wanted to output, Forth or something, you have the ability to do that. And those kinds of transformations are much more serious than, I'm going to upgrade to the next version of the language kind of transformations. We've only been live 38 minutes, and I fixed a bug and answered a bunch of questions. I'm getting tired. Plans for cross-compilation. How would you handle compile time execution if you're compiling with, say, for an architecture with different endianness? So some of these details I haven't worked out yet, right? It's not exactly compile time execution that's the problem, because you can run the execution on the endianness of your host machine, right? It's just that, when you write things into global data, if you ever do that, which we don't really do right now, like if you write variables into the global data of your target program, we don't save those. You only output text in syntax tree right now. both of which are endian independent and can be remapped. But you could imagine something where you're directly writing tables or something. But also you can imagine like there would need to be clarity about the variables that tell you what endian it is, right? Like we probably have, unlike C, right? We probably have a routine you can call to figure out what endian you are. But it probably needs to be clear about whether we're talking about the endian of the machine you're compiling on or the machine you're targeting. Because otherwise it would be too easy to assume that they're both the same when you often want them not to be. So we just have to work that stuff out. But I don't think it's implicitly a problem per se. It might get confusing to think about these things, but I think we just have to try it. And it's part of the programming language design then to make them as unconfusing as we can make them. But we need to see what the problems are first. Like we can't even cross-compile yet, so it's not worried about it yet. I will say that I want to make it possible. Yeah, right now the way that you transmit data between them is you just like output either a syntax tree or a text of like this is an array of numbers or whatever. Or you generate procedures or something like that. But none of those have endian dependencies. The only thing that would have endian dependencies is like direct memory writes, which we don't do yet. But we probably should because that's faster. And it's just that for other reasons, for reasons of predictability of your compile time stuff, so we don't okay, here's the thing. You start up your program. If that program has run directives that run compile time code, and that compile time code changes the values of global state, we don't save out that changed global state. We assume it's to be thrown away, right? And the reason for that is just, you might be running arbitrary code and it's very confusing if like it happens to use some state variable that you also use at runtime and it's not initialized to what your program says it's initialized to and so forth, right? Now that said, I played with the idea of marking certain variables as if this gets changed at compile time, keep the change, right? But we just haven't really needed to do that yet. So I haven't ever tested that idea to see if it's good. Can I make a snake game in the next 30 minutes? Probably, but am I going to? No. Cross-compile, what targets are you aiming for? Well, ideally everything, right? I would like to be able to, for example, just make a Linux executable without requiring you to have Linux installed, right? Now, that's a little bit annoying because Linux people are poo-poos about static linking and don't really let you statically link libc, I guess, or something. So that's stupid, but we would just figure out how to write it out. We would statically link everything else probably and just figure out how to write it out, the stub, to dynamically load libc or whatever, right? So that's the kind of thing we want to be able to do. That would be even much better for stuff like phones, right? Because compiling stuff for Android phones and iOS phones is a pain in the butt. However, because of, proprietary this, that, the other, there may be a limit to how much we can streamline it and make it good, but we'll try. Can I stream some Invaders programming again? No, man, I'm working on Sokoban. That's where the effort's going. Static linking on Linux is a nightmare. It shouldn't be because that's how you deliver reliable programs. How far is the slideshow program? I haven't worked on it in a while. The only real work I've done, I did on stream, except I did probably an extra half hour or 45 minutes because before I did a presentation, I needed a couple things like I needed to be able to toggle full screen mode and stuff, and I don't think I streamed that. But for the most part, next time I work on it, I want to work on it on stream. It's just that, you know, I've been prioritizing fixing compiler bugs, so yeah. No, it's not how you deliver insecure libraries. Sorry, bro. It's programming on Linux is a giant disaster, and one of the main reasons is because there isn't a culture of static linking. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Hopefully, not too late in 2018, we'll be able to make the compiler available to more and more people, and you'll get to play with it. That might be it for the night. It may be a short stream. You know, it's 3:30 in the morning. I fixed a bug. I sent some emails. I played some PUBG. I mean, what more do you want out of a day? Really? Well, I can think of some other things, but, you know. Do all the tests pass now? No, I still haven't done that one test, right? So, unless someone else magically fixed it, which they probably didn't. Let's find out. Nope, that one still fails. Maybe I'll fix it on the next stream or something, just to, it's nice for morale to have all your tests come in green, you know? So I'll probably fix that one soon. Oh, I can fix that typo that I made a note of. That does not. Am I going to build my own web browser eventually? Probably not. I can think of a lot of other things I'd rather do. Did I already know how to develop a compiler, or did I learn it on the way? I already knew. So I learned how to do compilers in college, both amateurly and through classes, and I really enjoyed it, so I made a bunch. I probably did like 10 different languages, or I probably did 8 or 9 in college and a little bit afterward. And so in Game Developer Magazine, I did a little bit of stuff. Let me see if I can. See if I can find. Here's a really old page for my Game Developer Magazine articles, and yeah, I did this series here, and I started making a language called LERP that was like a higher level, kind of a little bit hybrid of a declarative and imperative language. That was like my 9th or 10th language, and that was 2004. And between 2004 and 2017, I didn't really make anything. That was a compiler, and then lately I did again. So if you want to see a simple compiler, you could go back and look at this code, I guess. Oh man, old HTML not coming across. Or I guess I used some program that, I guess this is a backtick that's coming out as this question mark. Anyway, I was doing a prologue style thing, and you know, I shipped the source code to this. It was all right. So this is, you know, I was doing a little bit of like pattern matching and stuff. I don't know. It never was fully baked. But that was that. That was number 9 or something. Am I going to try Rust at any time? No. No, I wouldn't like it after a while. I talked about Rust on yesterday's stream, so I won't say it again. I'll just say again, there's some good things about it, but there's also some things that make it not a language that I will use if I have a choice. I'd return results, semicolon, return -1, semicolon, somewhere in the compiler some streams ago. Yeah, I probably forgot to delete the return -1. If we spot it next time, someone call it out to me and I'll get it. My SVN commit didn't work? Wait, what? What do you mean it didn't? Oh, this commit didn't work. Can we not check in test.exe? Because I think this is just going to happen all the time. Like, unless we want test.exe to run from an automated system, but even then it should probably rebuild from source code. I don't know. But thanks for spotting that. I totally didn't notice it didn't work. You also added another test file. All right. Oh! New test file crashes. Well, I was going to end the stream, but I have to at least look at the crash. Thanks. It is, can I just run it directly? Proper test guards. Type info. I don't know. What's the entry point? Oh, you know what? Never mind. No. Maybe I compiled with an old compiler? No, it's definitely crashing. I don't know, that could be a bug in the program. Are you sure it's checked in completely? Wait, why can't I? Oh, I ran the wrong thing. And it didn't crash when I'm running in the debug. What? Okay. Now it's not crashing. Okay, I would suggest there's probably just a bug in that program. There's like an uninitialized value or something that causes it to crash sometimes. Because I didn't rebuild it. Let me find a crash again. Wow, how many times did I run this? Now I'm probably at really old runs. Maybe we should Output what time it is, I don't know. Where was a crash? Maybe I just ran it too many times and scrolled it off. Did I hallucinate this crashing? Did I run the wrong program somehow? Like it's just totally working fine now. Any opinions about Dragon Book? Dragon Book is pretty old at this point. I would not really use it as a reference for anything. Even though some schools still use it, no Dragon Book. Well, the fact that Abner made a new test means that we're more successful. Now we're 94.4% successful. Do I have two commanders running? Yes, but I don't think I switched. No, the last thing I did here was commit the bug 44 fix. Yeah, I did, but I tried just running tests, and it doesn't matter. Dude, I don't know what's going on. There's an uninitialized value, that's all. The purple dragon book, is that a serious thing? There's a purple dragon book? Is it like minor revisions, or is it actually totally different? Because it would have to be totally different to be relevant. Wow, searching purple dragon book on the web is not totally recommended. See you later, man. Maybe we should think about adding some code instrumentation to detect uninitialized values. There might be some simple things we could do. I don't know. Have I received much interest from the game industry in this? Yeah, every time I go to a conference, there's people there who tell me they can't wait to get their hands on this. That probably doesn't represent the majority of game programmers, right? Probably the majority of game programmers have no idea what this is. Actually, probably the majority of game programmers have no idea who I am. But yeah, there's enough people out there who are interested in just waiting to get their hands on it, so that's good. Why not add some type of array bound check? We already have array bounds checking. And that is turned on by default in debug build. I don't know if this test program turns it on. Wow, Commander is being hella slow. I don't know if this test program turns it on, but it could. So I assume it's not an array bounds error because we do have array bounds checks. What would happen if you populate Seattle with programmers? What does that mean? There's lots of programmers in Seattle. There's lots of programmers in Seattle. Unfortunately, they mostly work for Amazon and are not doing interesting things. There's some people who don't fit that description. Oh, I see. You were asking uninitialized value access checks like debug-only checks. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that certain classes of those are very easy to add, but to handle all of them requires a substantial amount of runtime machinery, right? But for things like local variables, it's pretty easy. That said, we don't necessarily need to do it for local variables because local variables are always initialized unless you explicitly uninitialize them. So it's not as common of a mistake here as it would be in something like C++. But for stuff like, hey, some procedure returned a struct pointer, and is that initialized or not? Is the contents of that initialized or not? That starts to get annoying to do, but we could do it. I don't know. It's just maybe, it also has enough performance implications that you probably don't run with that on by default. All right, everybody, I'm going to bed. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll probably stream some more tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly, it's hard enough for me to go look at all the websites that report witness sales numbers that I honestly don't know how much it's sold, except in very vague terms. And it depends on whether you count. I mean, we did various high volume things early this year, like the Humble Monthly, and we did the Humble Freedom Bundle for the ACLU, where we didn't get paid, but the ACLU made $6 million and stuff like that. So, yep. See ya.